Welcome to Crime Maze. In this video we are going to talk about 5 cannibals that were released from prison. So before starting this video, like this video, and subscribe to Crime Maze for future updates. Here are the 5 cannibals that were released from prison. Number 5. Tim McLean was assassinated on the evening of July 30, 2008. McLean, a 22-year-old Canadian male, was stabbed, beheaded, and cannibalized while traveling a Greyhound Canada bus along the Trans-Canada Highway near Portage-la Prairie, Manitoba. McLean's killer, a 40-year-old Chinese-Canadian called Vince Lee, was judged not criminally responsible (NCR) for the murder on March 5, 2009, and was remanded in a high-security mental health facility in Selkirk, Manitoba, until his release on May 8, 2015. McLean was sleeping with his headphones on when the man seated next to him pulled out a huge knife and began stabbing him in the neck and chest, according to witnesses. The bus driver pulled over to the side of the road when the attack began, and he and the other passengers exited the vehicle. The driver and 2 other men attempted to save McLean, but Lee chased them away from behind the locked bus doors, slashing at them. Lee eventually decapitated McLean and presented his severed head to those outside the bus, before returning to McLean's body and removing additional parts and eating some of his flesh. Number 4. In February 2004, a 39-year-old East Londoner named Peter Bryan was apprehended, after killing his buddy Brian Cherry and eating chunks of his brain that had been fried in butter. He had previously been arrested for murder, but had been released shortly before this incident. Bryan was condemned to life in jail while on trial for the murder of Cherry, notwithstanding his claim of diminished responsibility. His sentence was reduced to a minimum of 15 years in January 2006. Number 3. As part of a prison release program, a German cannibal who killed and ate a guy he met through a personals ad is allowed to wander across towns in disguise. Armin Meiwes, 58, is serving a life sentence for the heinous act but is allowed to visit his family. According to the German tabloid Bild, Meiwes is allowed to wear sunglasses and a cap while walking through towns to avoid being recognized. He'll be accompanied by 2 officers, a police investigator said. "We transport him to another federal state for security concerns. He is free to walk throughout town there." After meeting through a personals ad 5 years beforehand, Meiwes was convicted in 2006 of killing and eating burned brands. Brands responded to Meiwes' request for a well-built 18 to 30-year-old to be slaughtered and subsequently consumed in the 2001 classified. Before Meiwes stabbed him to death, chopped him up on a butcher's table, and ate him, Brands took sleeping pills. Human flesh, according to Meiwes, tastes like a stronger form of pork. Because Brands had agreed to be killed and eaten, the situation was difficult. Meiwes was originally sentenced to 8 years in prison for manslaughter, but after a retrial, he was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. He is described as a model prisoner who apparently became a vegetarian while incarcerated. Number 2. Alfred Packer, a confessed Colorado cannibal, is released on parole after 18 years in prison. Alfred Packer supplemented his small mining income by working as a guide in the Utah and Colorado wilderness. He was one of the ragged armies of gold and silver prospectors who combed the Rocky Mountains in pursuit of riches in the 1860s. Packer left Bingham Canyon, Utah, in early November 1873 to lead a group of 21 men to the goldfields in Breckenridge, Colorado. The winter of 1873 to 1874 was particularly severe. The group staggered into the camp of Ute Indian Chief Ouray, near present-day Montrose, Colorado, after 3 months of grueling journey. The Utes generously supplied food and shelter to the hungry and fatigued men. Chief Ouray recommended the men to wait at the camp until the harsh winter weather passed, but Packer and 5 other men decided to press on, their vigor revived by food and rest. Packer arrived alone to the Los Pinos Indian Agency 2 months later, appearing remarkably fit for a guy who had recently undergone a grueling winter trek over the Rockies. Packer initially said he was separated from his 5 buddies during a snow, and had to rely on bunnies and rosebuds to survive. Suspicions rose, however, when it was revealed that Packer had a large sum of money and many of the missing men's belongings. When pressed, Packer admitted that the true tale was considerably more gruesome. 4 of the guys died naturally as a result of the harsh winter weather, and the starving survivors ate them. When there was only Packer and 1 other man still alive, Shannon Bell went wild and threatened to kill Packer. Packer claimed he shot Bell in self-defense and ate his body later. Number 1. In Pakistan's Punjab province, 2 brothers were sentenced to 12 years in prison for cannibalism. Following a public outcry in April, Muhammad Farman Ali and Muhammad Arif Ali were arrested when the head of a kid was discovered in their home. They were found guilty of grave desecrating, a criminal offense, as well as other accusations. Cannibalism is illegal in Pakistan. After being convicted of similar crimes in 2011, the brothers were sentenced to 2 years in prison. In this case, the sentencing took place in a Punjab anti-terrorism court in Sargodha. The brothers have the option of appealing to the state's highest court. In addition to desecrating the child's grave, the two were found guilty of instilling fear and causing property damage, all of which are crimes under Pakistan's anti-terrorism legislation. The brothers were arrested on April 14 of this year, after a child's skull was discovered in their home. They eventually acknowledged to digging up the child's body from a grave and preparing it as curry. They were detained in April 2011 for a similar offense, and sentenced to 2 years in prison, which they completed in May of last year. People in their own village of Kawar Kalan, near Darya Khan in Punjab's Bakar district, were enraged at their release. The brothers lived a low-key life after their release, remaining out of the public eye. Residents, meanwhile, reported in April that their home reeked of rotting meat. The severed head of a 2-year-old child who had died and been buried in a local graveyard was discovered during a subsequent police raid. What do you think about this video? Which of the following 5 cannibals that were released from prison you like the most? Do let us know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.